Every generation produces footballers who feel different, players who make defenders nervous. Stadiums explode and millions of fans stop what they are doing to watch. But only a few arrive so young that the entire football world pays attention. In 2023, a teenager from Catalonia stepped onto the pitch wearing one of football's most famous shirts, Barcelona. His name was Lamine Yamal. At 15 years old, he became the youngest player ever to appear for Barcelona in La Liga. At 16, he became Spain's youngest ever player and goal scorer. At 17, he became a European champion. Records disappeared, expectations grew, and suddenly, football had a new question. Was the world watching the beginning of another football legend? But history has always warned us, talent alone is not enough. Many young stars have arrived with incredible promise, only to disappear under the weight of pressure. The hardest challenge is not becoming famous. The hardest challenge is staying there. Could Lamine handle the responsibility? Could he carry Barcelona's famous shirt? Could he survive comparisons with Lionel Messi? Or would he create something completely different? This is the story of Lamine Yamal, the fearless teenager who turned dreams into history and began writing one of football's most remarkable journeys. Lamine Yamal Nasraoui Ebana was born on the 13th of July, 2007, in Esplugues de Llobregat, near Barcelona. Growing up between Mataró and Granollers, football was everywhere. For Lamine, football was not just a hobby. It was his language, his happiness, his escape, like millions of children around the world. He played whenever he could, on streets, in parks, on local pitches. But very quickly, people noticed something unusual. Lamine was different. He was not only faster than other children, he thought faster. He saw spaces before they appeared. He understood the game before others. And most importantly, he was fearless. Older players tried to stop him physically. They tried to push him away from the ball. But Lamine always wanted the same thing, the ball. If a defender stopped him once, he tried again. If a move failed, he repeated it. Mistakes did not scare him. They motivated him. That confidence became one of his greatest qualities. As a left-footed winger, Lamine loved playing on the right side, receiving the ball, facing defenders, changing direction, cutting inside, creating danger. Sometimes he finished. Sometimes he found a teammate with a perfect pass. But his biggest talent was not only his technique, it was his understanding. He knew when to attack, when to slow the game, when to create, and when to take responsibility. Those qualities cannot be taught. They have to exist inside a player. And soon, Barcelona noticed. At only 7 years old, Lamine joined La Masia, the legendary Barcelona academy that produced players who changed football forever. Lionel Messi, Xavi Hernandez, Andrés Iniesta, Sergio Busquets. Thousands of children dream of reaching Barcelona's first team. Almost none achieve it. Even fewer become stars. But Lamine's development was different. Coaches quickly realized he was not progressing normally. He was constantly moved into older age groups, playing against stronger opponents, more experienced players, bigger challenges. But every challenge created the same result. Lamine adapted. He did not look overwhelmed. He looked comfortable. Inside La Masia, one belief started to grow. This player was special. Long before the world knew his name, Lamine Yamal had already met Lionel Messi. In 2007, during a charity photo shoot, a young Messi appeared alongside a baby Lamine. At that moment, nobody could imagine what would happen years later. One was a rising Barcelona superstar. The other was a baby beginning his journey. The photograph disappeared into history until Lamine became famous. Then the image returned. Millions of people saw it. Many called it destiny, a passing of the torch, a symbol connecting two generations. But Lamine understood the truth. Greatness cannot simply be transferred. Messi's achievements belong to Messi. His journey belonged to him. Messi inspired millions of players around the world. Lamine Yamal was one of them, but he never wanted to become the next Lionel Messi. He wanted to become the first Lamine Yamal. By 2023, Barcelona was facing one of the most difficult periods in its modern history. Financial problems had changed the club. Experienced stars had left. The team needed new leaders. And once again, Barcelona turned to the place that had always provided hope, La Masia. Among the academy players, one teenager stood above the rest. Lamine Yamal, Barcelona manager Xavi Hernandez watched him closely. What impressed Xavi was not only his ability, it was his personality. Many young players become nervous when they train with professionals. Lamine was different. He asked for the ball. He attempted difficult things. He played with confidence, almost as if he had been there for years. Some people believed it was too early, 15 years old, too young, too much pressure. But Xavi saw something others did not: talent, intelligence, and most importantly, character. The historic debut, the 29th of April, 2023, Barcelona against Real Betis. The moment arrived. At just 15 years and 290 days old, Lamine Yamal stepped onto the pitch, a teenager wearing the Barcelona shirt. A teenager playing alongside some of the best footballers in the world. With that appearance, he became the youngest player ever to represent Barcelona in La Liga. The record books changed, but the story had only begun. Because making history once is difficult. Doing it again is extraordinary. Football has always produced young talents, but very few rewrite history before they are old enough to fully understand what they have achieved. Lamine Yamal did exactly that. At 15 years old, he became Barcelona's youngest ever La Liga debutant, a record showing the incredible trust the club placed in him. The Spanish national team shirt carries generations of history, but Lamine did not look like a teenager making his debut. He looked ready. At 16 years and 50 days old, he became the youngest player ever to represent Spain's senior national team. Only minutes after making his debut, Lamine created another historic moment. Against Georgia, he received the ball and finished with incredible calmness. A teenager, a national team, a historic goal. At 16 years and 57 days old, Lamine Yamal became Spain's youngest ever goal scorer. Another record disappeared. Behind the records, behind the pressure, behind the headlines, Lamine was still a teenager. And that was one of the things teammates loved about him. He joked during training. He laughed with teammates. He celebrated small moments. Even after becoming one of football's biggest names, he still had the personality of a kid who simply enjoyed playing football. During interviews, he often showed confidence beyond his age, but away from the cameras, he was still the same young player. The one who enjoyed football because it was fun, not because it was famous. Football fans quickly noticed something special about Lamine. He was serious when the match started, but playful when the pressure disappeared. At Barcelona training sessions, he often joked with teammates. He celebrated goals with youthful energy. He smiled constantly. A funny contrast appeared. On Saturday, he could embarrass a world-class defender. On Sunday, he could still look like a teenager enjoying a kickabout with friends. That balance became part of his identity. The superstar on the pitch, the kid away from it. Some goals are important, others are unforgettable. Lamine Yamal had already created moments that made fans ask, how did he do that? Spain versus Georgia, September 2023, 16 years old, first appearance for Spain. Most players would feel pressure. Lamine looked calm. Inside the box, he made the decision quickly, a controlled finish, a historic celebration. The youngest goal scorer in Spain's history. It was more than a goal. It was a statement. One of Lamine's most dangerous weapons became his ability to shoot from distance. Many players need space, Lamine creates it. A small movement, a quick touch, a defender trying to close him down. Suddenly, a normal attack becomes a special moment. His left foot became a weapon. Crosses, assists, shots, goals. The ball seemed to follow his imagination. Against Mallorca, Lamine received the ball outside the penalty area. The obvious choice was a pass, but Lamine saw something different. A small opening, a chance. He created space and unleashed a beautiful curling strike. The ball moved beyond the goalkeeper. A perfect finish. A reminder that special players see opportunities others miss. Every young footballer dreams of playing in El Clasico. Barcelona against Real Madrid, the biggest rivalry in club football. The pressure is enormous. The atmosphere is unforgettable. But Lamine played like he always had. Fearless, creative, confident. By scoring against Real Madrid, he became one of the youngest players ever to score in El Clasico. The occasion did not overwhelm him. The stadium did not scare him. The teenager looked at home. Then came the tournament that changed everything. Euro 2024, the biggest stage in European football. The question was simple. Could a 16-year-old handle this pressure? Lamine answered without hesitation. With football, From the opening matches, he created chances, he defeated defenders, he gave Spain something every great team needs, a player capable of creating magic. Spain did not protect him like a teenager, they trusted him like a star. The goal against France. The moment everything changed. Semi-final. Spain versus France. A place in the European Championship final. The match needed inspiration, and Lamine provided it. The ball arrived outside the box. A defender moved toward him. The teenager took one touch, looked up, and struck. The ball curled toward the top corner. Perfect. Powerful. Unstoppable. The stadium exploded. The football world stopped. At 16 years and 362 days old, Lamine Yamal became the youngest goalscorer ever in European Championship history. That was the moment everything changed. Before that goal, he was football's brightest young talent. After that goal, he was a global superstar. Days later, Spain faced England in the final. A tournament that started with questions, ended with celebration. Spain won the European Championship, and Lamine Yamal became a European champion at just 17 years old. He also received the UEFA Young Player of the Tournament award. The teenager who arrived as a Wonderkid left as one of football's biggest names. Winning the European Championship changed everything. Before Euro 2024, Lamine Yamal was considered football's most exciting young talent. After Euro 2024, he became one of the faces of football's future. But success brings something every young player must face: pressure. Every match became a headline. Every mistake became a discussion. Every great performance created even bigger expectations. The questions followed him everywhere. Could he become Barcelona's next superstar? Could he lead Spain for the next generation? Could he reach the level of the legends who came before him? Football history is full of young players who arrived with incredible talent. Some became icons, others disappeared under impossible expectations. Lamine understood the challenge. Talent opened the door, but hard work would decide how far he could go. One of the most impressive things about Lamine Yamal was not only what he did on the pitch, it was how he handled success. Despite worldwide attention, he remained connected to the people around him. His family kept him grounded. His teammates supported him. His coaches protected his development. He continued training, continued learning, continued improving, because he knew something important. A great season does not create a legend. Consistency does. The records that changed football history. Numbers tell only part of the story, but Lamine Yamal's numbers are extraordinary. Before reaching adulthood, he had already rewritten football history. Barcelona's youngest La Liga debutant. At 15 years and 290 days old, Lamine became the youngest player ever to represent Barcelona in La Liga, a record that announced his arrival. Youngest Spain player. At 16 years and 50 days old, he became Spain's youngest ever senior international, a teenager wearing one of football's most famous national shirts. Youngest Spain goal scorer. At 16 years and 57 days old, he scored against Georgia, the youngest player ever to score for Spain. Youngest European Championship player. At Euro 2024, Lamine became the youngest player ever to appear at a European Championship. Instead of simply participating, he changed matches. Youngest European Championship goal scorer. Against France, he created one of football's defining moments. A teenager, a semi-final, a perfect strike. The youngest goal scorer in European Championship history. European champion at 17. After Spain defeated England, Lamine became one of the youngest players ever to win the European Championship. A teenager had achieved something many players never achieved in an entire career. By 2026, Lamine Yamal had already achieved what many footballers spend their entire careers chasing: a Barcelona star, a European champion, a global name. But then came the biggest stage of all, the FIFA World Cup, the tournament every footballer dreams of winning, the stage where legends are created. And once again, Lamine Yamal proved that he belonged among the very best. At only 18 years old, he became a world champion, a player who had already conquered Europe and now stood at the top of world football. A journey that began on the streets of Catalonia had reached the biggest stage in the game. But perhaps the most remarkable part of the story was not only what he had achieved, it was how young he still was. Only 18 years old, a player who had already reached football's highest level, but was still learning, still improving, still discovering how far his talent could take him. Because becoming great is one challenge, remaining great is another. The future would bring new opponents, new pressure, new expectations. Every defender would study him, every team would prepare for him, every performance would be judged. But that is the challenge every legend must face. The question was no longer, can Lamine Yamal become a superstar? The world already knew the answer. The real question became, how far can Lamine Yamal go? What qualities makes Lamine so extraordinary? Talent can open the door, but talent alone does not create legends. The greatest players in history have something more: discipline, mental strength, consistency, the hunger to improve, the courage to continue working after success arrives. Because winning trophies is difficult, but staying at the top is even harder. Lamine Yamal already had the talent. The world had already seen the magic, the fearless dribbles, the creativity, the goals, the records, the trophies. But the next challenge was bigger than any single match: building a legacy. History remembers footballers who create emotions, not only because they win trophies, not only because they break records, but because they inspire generations. Lamine Yamal has already created unforgettable memories. The fearless dribbles, the impossible passes, the spectacular goals, the records, the European Championship, the World Cup. But the most beautiful part of his story is where it began. Before Barcelona, before Spain, before the fame, he was simply a child with a football. A boy from Catalonia chasing a dream. Years earlier, Lionel Messi held that child during a charity photo shoot. At the time, it was only a photograph. Years later, it became a symbol. Not because greatness can be passed from one player to another, but because inspiration travels. Messi inspired millions. Lamine Yamal was one of them. And now, another child watching Lamine play may dream of following his path. Because football is always searching for the next hero, the next artist, the next legend. Greatness cannot be gifted, it must be earned. From the streets of Catalonia, to Barcelona, to Europe, to becoming a world champion, Lamine Yamal has already written the first chapters of an extraordinary story. The trophies are unforgettable, the goals will live forever, but the greatest chapters may still be waiting. Because the journey of Lamine Yamal has only just begun.